Do you think Maleficent is scary? Or do you think Scar is ruthless? Or maybe even Hades as intimidating? But what if I told you Disney has a villain so bleak, so merciless, that he makes Hades look like a picnic? A villain with no tragic backstory, no redemption arc, and no witty humor. Just death, and the promise of more to come. Today, we're diving into the Horned King from the Black Cauldron, a skeletal warlord who commands an army of the dead and seeks nothing less than total annihilation. This is the story of Disney's most underrated and genuinely terrifying villain. Disney's darkest gamble. When The Black Cauldron was released in 1985, it wasn't just another Disney animated film. It was a studio turning point. This was Disney's first PG-rated animated feature, adapted from Lloyd Alexander's The Chronicles of Prydain, a fantasy series inspired heavily by Welsh mythology. At the center of it all stood the Horned King. And unlike previous Disney villains, witches, queens, or schemers, the Horned King was something else entirely. A lich-like conqueror animated as a literal walking corpse, with no charm, no humor, and no moral lesson for the kids who watched. Just pure dread. Who is the Horned King? The Horned King's goal is very simple, and that's what makes it horrifying. He seeks the Black Cauldron, an ancient artifact capable of raising the dead into an unstoppable army known as the Cauldron Born. And once awakened, these undead soldiers feel no pain, and they cannot be reasoned with. They only exist to destroy. And unlike villains who want power, wealth, or control, the Horned King simply wants obliteration. He doesn't rule the world, he ends it. A villain without humanity. This is where the Horned King stands apart from nearly every other Disney villain. Scar wants the throne, Ursula seeks revenge, and Frollo wants control disguised as righteousness. The Horned King wants nothing but domination through death. He has no emotional ties, no tragic flaw, and no internal conflict. Even his design reinforces this. His body is skeletal, he has red glowing eyes, and his horns crown him like a demonic parody of royalty. He doesn't fall into villainy, he exists as villainy. Before we go any further, if you enjoy Disney's darker history, the risks the studio took, and the villains that pushed animation into uncomfortable territory, consider liking the video and subscribing. It helps this channel keep uncovering the Disney stories that don't always get talked about. Now, let's talk about the voice that made these nightmares real. John Hurt, the voice of Doom. The Horned King was voiced by John Hurt, one of the most respected actors of his generation. Known for Alien, The Elephant Man, and 1984, Hurt brought a chilling, theatrical presence to the role. Disney deliberately cast him for one reason and one reason only. They wanted the Horned King to sound ancient, inevitable, and inhuman. His delivery is slow, measured, almost ceremonial. Lines like, "The Black Cauldron is mine," aren't shouted, they're pronounced like a death sentence. This wasn't a villain chewing scenery, this was a villain looming over it. Animation that crossed a line. The Horned King's animation was supervised by Andreas Deja, who would later animate villains like Scar and Jafar. But here, Disney allowed something rare. The Horned King doesn't move like a cartoon, he moves like a corpse being held together by sheer will. His robes hang heavy, his skeletal hands linger in frame, and his presence dominates scenes even when he's silent. According to Disney production notes, animators were encouraged to make him feel physically uncomfortable to watch, and audiences noticed. Too much, in fact. A film Disney tried to bury. The Black Cauldron nearly destroyed Disney animation. It actually bombed at the box office. It terrified children, and it forced Disney to confront how far they could push darkness. Legendary Disney animator Don Bluth had already left the studio by this point, and internally, the Black Cauldron became a cautionary tale. The film was locked away for years, with no re-releases, no merchandise, or even park presence, at least within the United States, and at the center of that controversy was the Horned King. He was too scary, too bleak, and too final. Death and Disney's first villain to truly die. Here's something crucial. Most Disney villains fall. They're eventually defeated, banished, or imprisoned. The Horned King, on the other hand, is destroyed. When the Black Cauldron turns on him, it doesn't just kill him, it consumes his soul. His final moments are silent, desperate, and undignified. He has no last laugh, no dramatic monologue, just erasure. And that may be the most disturbing part of it all. Legacy of a Forgotten Monster. Today, the Horned King remains largely absent from Disney parks, merchandise, and promotional material. But among animation fans, he's actually become an icon, frequently ranked among Disney's darkest villains, and often cited as the studio's most frightening antagonist, and remembered as the moment Disney crossed a line and never quite returned. In a strange way, his obscurity only makes him scarier, because unlike Maleficent or Scar, he wasn't ever meant to be loved as a character. Why the Horned King still matters. The Horned King reminds us that Disney once dared to create a villain without sympathy, with no charm, no redemption, and no safety net. Just fear. And maybe that's why he remains Disney's most underrated villain, in my opinion. Because he wasn't designed to entertain, he was designed to haunt. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into Disney's darkest corner, consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on post notifications so that way you never miss out on a future upload. Also, be sure to leave your thoughts down in the comments below. I would love to hear your opinions on this villain, as well as any future villains that you'd like me to cover in a future video. And I'll end with this question. Do you think Disney should ever create a villain like this again? And until next time, remember, not all Disney stories are meant to be comforting. Some are meant to warn us what happens when darkness is left unchecked.